Welcome back to College Football Addiction. We got Drake Toll to talk a little bit of the college football playoff, Arizona State, Texas in our video today, presented by BetUS. Drake, let's just get right to it. Does Arizona State have a chance in this game?
Arizona State absolutely has a chance, and not just a chance. I think a chip on their shoulder. Texas fans don't want to hear it, and they'll balk at this idea that the game should be or could be competitive. But even the analytics have this as a touchdown win for Texas. I'll give it to you. The efficiencies, if you look at just those, will lean the way of the Longhorns. However, there are plenty of avenues at which Arizona State could win this football game, or at the very least make it competitive. The reason I do think they'll end up winning is one. Let's go one right here. The run game with Cam Scadaboo is elite. It is run over everybody this year. I do believe if he had the same schedule as an Ashton Genty, he's in the Heisman conversation and still was 5, 6 in that pool of players there for the Heisman voting at the end of the year. For Texas, look at their main bell cow in the offense. Quinn Ewers is the big name, Arch Manning. I've heard Texas fans say that they don't trust Quinn Ewers and that Arch Manning should be the quarterback, and they're begging for Manning to get into more packages. When that is the idea you have of your starting quarterback, the kid who's supposed to win you this football game, I don't think it bodes well for Texas. And Ewers has been a turnover machine at times this year. You can't try. 1 out of every 3 throws goes to the pretty lady in the second row of the student section. Like, what? This is supposed to be a Heisman caliber, insanely good quarterback, and Ewers hasn't shown that consistently this year. Cam Scadaboo has at running back. I believe he keeps Arizona State in this game. In any football game, gives them an edge to win. And Arizona State's ability to turn teams over defensively is going to give them an edge against Texas. That was the first point. That's this year. But in the context of the last 15, Texas won one Big 12 championship in the last 14 years. They couldn't dominate the conference, even under Sark. I watched them play Baylor at Baylor, I guess 2022, where Texas had to score a garbage time touchdown to even put 7 on the board late in the game, and the guy got stomped his first couple of years with the Longhorns in the Big 12. I just don't believe that Texas is as good, especially with their schedule, as everyone's touted them to be. And again, if you're playing what is a quasi Big 12 championship, Texas could only grab one of those in 14 years. I don't think they're getting a second in year 15.
There might not have been a hotter team toward the end of the regular season
Absolutely.
and then into conference championship week as Arizona State. I would assume that if Kenny Dillingham could have picked, he would have played his very next game the next week, because how much does the layoff? Texas got a pretty good challenge a week and a half ago with Clemson and got to see some things. How much does the layoff maybe impact things? It's the old rest versus rust adage.
Yeah, I think that Texas fans would argue that Clemson game was a blowout, but if you look at it, I mean, the 14-point victory, they couldn't put them away. There was a point late in the game where Texas has the ball up by 7. Clemson is within striking distance of the Longhorns, so while that game started so slow for the Tigers, there was an opportunity. The door was still open, and the fact that Texas left the door open didn't give me a ton of confidence that the Longhorns could boat race Arizona State. Now, to your question, that is it. I mean, was the competitive game for Texas something that puts them at a disadvantage going into this one 9-10 days later? And if you're Arizona State, was the rest worth it? Was the bye week worth it? And in the MLB, the answer is no, right? You see a lot of times like these wild card teams got 3 extra games. They look fresh. In football, I think it's a different story. It's the reason no one in the NFL has ever complained about a bye. No one in college football has ever complained about rest. Look, I was thinking about this the other day. These kids are going to class 30 hours a week. I mean, they're putting over 30 hours a week into their schoolwork, and then they're thinking about playbook, and then outside of the playbook, thinking about opponent and scout and film, and they're in biology class watching their huddle or whatever their film might be. They are working full-time jobs plus some. They barely got to go home for Christmas. Texas players truly couldn't because of their college football playoff schedule. Arizona State got to take a second to breathe. In college football, ask any coach. They would take the bye week 10 times out of 10. There's no like, oh, we want to stay fresh. Arizona State is as fresh as it gets. It's not a stay hot, it's a stay fresh. And I think the Sun Devils have an advantage there.
Talk to me about the trenches. I think that's probably the area. Texas littered with blue chip talent, so that's not the only area where they may have an advantage. But that does seem like the biggest thing that Arizona State's going to have to try to overcome. They've done really well when they've matched up against Georgia. Texas has in the trenches. Now I know one of those games wasn't super close, but they've done a good job of limiting Georgia's run at times. Is that the biggest obstacle you see in this game for Arizona State? I'll get right back to the video, but first, want to give some love to BetUS. You can use our code YouTube150 for a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. You get 125% on your next 2 deposits. All of that up to $2,000. Whether you're betting on the college football playoff, bowl season, the NFL, NBA, NHL, whatever you want to bet on, they will get you taken care of. Again, YouTube150 gets you that bonus. I appreciate BetUS.
No doubt, it has to be. I don't believe there is as much of a gap between skill position for these two teams as many would have you believe in the Texas realm, and that is because Arizona State seems to go so deep at the wide receiver position. Cam Scatterboot, running back, Sam Levitt at quarterback, and Levitt is, again, I talk about chip on a shoulder. He's a guy who, when we compare Quinn Ewers' stats to Levitt's stats, Levitt, who's a sophomore, 24 touchdowns to Ewers' 26, 5 interceptions to Ewers' 10. With 70 fewer passes, he's within 200 yards of Quinn Ewers this season throwing the football. That bodes really well for Sam Levitt. Again, Cam Scatterboot is going to give you an opportunity. Even the Guillory kid who came in at wide receiver last week, who was redshirting and now gets to play in the postseason, gives Arizona State a skill edge. So with that being said, it is the trenches where you have to focus. Can Arizona State hold back Texas enough for Sam Levitt to get comfortable? That's been, look, all credit in the world to Texas. That's been the one thing they've dominated opponents on this year, is being able to get to the quarterback with the defensive line, have their offensive line hold steady and establish the run game, give Ewers some time. And maybe that makes his 10 interceptions look even worse considering the time that he's gotten because of that big O-line. Here in this game, yes, the trenches are where it matters the most. If Sam Levitt has time to let the skill position players cook, that's where Arizona State can win. That's a big if.
There might not be a more fun coach in college football than Kenny Dillingham. If all programs aside, if there was one coach that, and of course you'd love to play for Kirby, right? To go to the NFL and be able to race speed cars down the street. But outside of that, if there was a fun coach to go and play for, all things considered, it might be Kenny Dillingham. But is there a coaching advantage in this matchup?
There is certainly a pomp and circumstance advantage. Going into a bowl game like this, Kenny Dillingham is the rah-rah guy. He is the master motivator. If you're playing NCAA 25, you're going to pick a different category from recruiter to tactician. He is the motivator. I want to play for that guy. And there are a lot of BYU fans or Kansas State fans or Colorado fans in the Big 12 who just don't like him because he's really tough to root for when he's not on your sideline. If you're not one of his players or one of his fans, then he's Kim Mulkey, right? He's just this loud, just this exuberant character that people want to fight against, but his players love that. That's the dude you want to be on their side because they're ticking everybody else off, and they're not afraid to talk. And then Kenny Dillingham backs it up. Is there a coaching advantage here? X's and O's wise, that was the whole conversation this offseason, is Dillingham might have built the best X's and O's staff in the Big 12. That was, okay, sure, but the Jimmys and Joes aren't there. Come to find out, they are, with the coaching staff as well. If there's an advantage from a motivational standpoint, it certainly is a nod to Dillingham. X's and O's wise, too. They're the hottest team in the country for a reason. They beat Arizona 49-7 for a reason. They were able to hold off a late BYU comeback for a reason and dominate Kansas State by 10 on the road for a reason. I love what Arizona State has done from a coaching standpoint this season, and really their only big blemish was that loss to Cincinnati where their quarterback didn't play.
Everyone is trying to figure out from the outside, right? Everyone is trying to figure out who Texas is playing in the next round between Ohio State and Oregon, which I think is going to be the best college football game we get in the playoffs. But is that pressure, maybe how does Texas deal with that pressure versus how Arizona State can go into this thing as loose as possible because no one is picking them?
Arizona State does not give a rat's butt who plays in the national semifinal. Texas does. I can guarantee you that those players on the Texas roster, there are coaches on the Texas staff that are looking toward, okay, who would it be between Oregon and Ohio State? How do we scout? And there are coaches who it's their job every given week to look a week ahead. It's probably your 23-year-old GA who's sitting down there watching that film. But for Texas, I can guarantee you that Quinn Ewers right now is wondering, oh, what if I get to play Ohio State? Oh, how cool would it be to have that kind of matchup against my former team? And Arizona State's like, okay, we could get a Pac-12 matchup with Oregon. We don't even care. We're just going to go beat Texas. That is the difference. And I talked about that a lot with Miami and Iowa State this last week. Of Miami kind of, they missed the mark. They weren't really focused on a bowl game. Iowa State had one mission, that was go win a football game. Arizona State has one mission. It's not to win a national championship. It's to win a football game. Texas, this is a program that perennially, historically, falls to the noise. There's a whole lot of noise this week.
I want to get your prediction, so I'll ask this as a double and we'll wrap up and get out of here. Would anybody in the country outside of the Arizona State program and alums and fans, would anybody in this country be happier than Brett Yormark if Arizona State is able to win this? And then give me your prediction.
Me, probably me. I would be very happy if this was to occur. Here is the prediction people are going to push back on. When Michigan played TCU in that college football playoff game, Michigan's O-line was too good, their D-line was too good, the quarterback was too experienced and too poised. And in the end, TCU made it about the skill position players, made it about a foot race, made it about a track meet, and they won the game on that. I think Arizona State has had plenty of time to find holes, plenty of time to scout this game out. The Sun Devils win this one by a fun. And Texas offense, we've seen it struggle, especially against that Georgia team who, even with the backup quarterback, was able to win in the SEC championship. I believe that Arizona State holds Texas to 24 points in this game. They put up a total of 27 themselves. That's 2 field goals on the board, which is crazy for Arizona State. 27-24. The Sun Devils get it done, and it's not even a miracle. They expect. Everybody in that program expects to get it done in that fashion, and they will.
Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find more Big 12 content?
At LO Big 12 on Twitter or at Drake C. Toll, and wherever you find your podcast, plus YouTube with Locked On Big 12.
Thanks, buddy.
Always.
Thank you so much for watching. If you appreciated, enjoyed, loved, or hated our video today, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of our content. Again, appreciate BetUS for their support. We will talk to you soon on College Football Addiction.